The surgeon asked, "Are you aware of your real diagnosis?" My guardian had lied about everything. The fluorescent lights above the hospital bed felt like interrogation lamps as Dr. Martinez leaned forward, her expression unreadable behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Are you aware of your real diagnosis?" I blinked, still groggy from the anesthesia that had knocked me out for emergency appendix surgery 3 hours earlier. "What do you mean?" "I have Huntington's disease. I've had it since I was 11. The silence that followed lasted exactly 7 seconds. I counted them, the way I'd been counting everything since Uncle Derek told me I'd be dead by 30. Time becomes precious when you think you're dying. Dr. Martinez glanced at the tablet in her hands, then back at me. "We ran comprehensive blood work before your surgery, including genetic screening. You don't have Huntington's disease. You never did." The words hit me like ice water. "That's impossible. I take medication for it. I have regular checkups with Dr. Brennan. I called Dr. Brennan's office an hour ago." Her voice was gentle but firm. "They have no record of you as a patient. The medication bottles you brought in. They're vitamins. Expensive vitamins, but vitamins nonetheless." My hands started shaking, not from the disease I thought I had, but from something much worse. The realization that everything I believed about my life was crumbling in real time. "I don't understand." My voice came out as a whisper. Dr. Martinez pulled up a chair. "How long have you believed you had this condition?" 11 years. Since my parents died in a car accident." The words felt foreign in my mouth now. My Uncle Derek became my guardian. He said the genetic testing revealed I had the same disease that killed my grandmother. "And you've never seen these test results yourself?" I shook my head. "Derek handles all my medical stuff. He says it's too complicated for me to understand, and that the stress of managing it could trigger symptoms." The doctor's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "What kind of symptoms have you experienced?" I stopped. In 11 years of living with a terminal diagnosis, I'd never actually felt sick. Derek always said I was lucky, that my symptoms were mild, that the medication was keeping the disease at bay. "I get tired sometimes. Everyone gets tired sometimes." The room felt like it was spinning, but not from any genetic disorder. From the slow, horrible understanding that Uncle Derek, the man who'd raised me, who I'd trusted with my life, had been lying to me for over a decade. "There's more," Dr. Martinez said, checking something on her tablet. "Your insurance information didn't match our records. When we tried to verify coverage, we discovered you've been receiving disability benefits for Huntington's disease since you were 12. Benefits that are being direct deposited into an account under Derek Walsh's name." Derek. My guardian. My uncle. The only family I had left. The man who'd convinced me to take online classes instead of going to college because stress might worsen my condition. Who'd discouraged me from dating because it wouldn't be fair to burden someone else with my illness. Who'd helped me apply for disability benefits when I turned 18, saying it would help cover my expensive treatments. I'd been living like a ghost for 11 years, convinced I was dying, while Derek collected $1,847 every month in disability payments. My disability payments. "I need to see those insurance records," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I need to see everything." Dr. Martinez hesitated, glancing toward the door. "I should probably wait for." "Please." The word came out harder than I intended. "I'm 22 years old. I have a right to know what's been done to me." She studied my face for a long moment, then pulled up something on her tablet. "The disability claim was filed by Derek Walsh as your legal guardian in March 2013. He submitted falsified medical records from a Dr. Richard Brennan, but here's the thing. Dr. Brennan's medical license was revoked in 2011 for insurance fraud." My stomach dropped. "So the doctor doesn't exist anymore. Hasn't practiced legally for 13 years. But Derek has been scheduling you 4 appointments with him every 6 months, hasn't he?" I nodded numbly. Derek would drive me to a medical building downtown, tell me to wait in the car while he went inside to get my prescription refills and discuss my test results with Dr. Brennan. He always came back with those vitamin bottles and updates about my condition, how well I was responding to treatment, how proud the doctor was of my stability. "There's more." Dr. Martinez scrolled down. "Your parents, Michael and Sarah Chen, left you as the beneficiary of a life insurance policy worth $340,000. The payments have been going into a trust fund managed by Derek since 2012. He's been making regular withdrawals, $2,000 here, $3,500 there. Always labeled as medical expenses. $340,000. My hands clenched the hospital blanket. I'd been living in Derek's cramped apartment for 11 years, wearing thrift store clothes, eating generic cereal for dinner, while he told me we couldn't afford anything better because of my medical bills. "How much is left?" I asked. She winced. "As of last month's statement, $23,847. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not grief, not yet. Something sharper. Derek had stolen over $300,000 from me while convincing me I was dying. He'd kept me isolated and dependent while he spent my parents' life insurance money on God knows what. "I need copies of everything," I said. "The insurance records, the bank statements, all of it. I can't just." "Yes, you can. It's my information. My money. My life he's been stealing." I met her eyes. "And I need to know exactly how long I have before he realizes what happened here today." Dr. Martinez checked her watch. "Visiting hours end at 8 p.m. It's 6:30 now. Has he called?" I looked at my phone for the first time since waking up. 12 missed calls from Derek and a string of increasingly frantic text messages. Asterisk, how did surgery go? Call me back, asterisk. Asterisk, doctors won't tell me anything. Coming to get you, asterisk. Asterisk, why aren't you answering? Are you okay, asterisk. Asterisk, which room are you in? Front desk being difficult, asterisk. The last message was sent 20 minutes ago. He's probably in the parking lot right now, I said, my mind racing. Derek had controlled every aspect of my medical care for 11 years. If he talked to the right person, if he convinced someone he was my worried guardian just trying to help. Dr. Martinez, I need you to put a note in my file. Derek Walsh is not authorized to receive any information about my condition or treatment. Not a word. Are you sure? He is your legal guardian. He's a thief who's been lying to me since I was 11 years old. I looked at my phone again. Another text had just come in, asterisk found your room number. On my way up, asterisk. My heart started pounding. In 60 seconds, Derek would walk through that door expecting to find the same sick, dependent kid he'd been controlling for over a decade. Instead, he was going to find someone who knew the truth. And I wasn't sure which one of us was more dangerous right now. The footsteps in the hallway were getting closer, that familiar shuffle drag of Derek's left foot that he claimed was an old football injury but that I now wondered about. Everything about him had become a question mark in the span of 20 minutes. Dr. Martinez moved quickly, typing something into her tablet. I'm updating your file now. Hospital security protocols for potential abuse cases. Abuse cases? Financial abuse is still abuse, she said without looking up. And given the scope of what we're discussing. The door handle turned. Derek walked in with that same concerned expression he'd worn to every fake doctor's appointment, every disability review meeting, every moment he'd played the devoted guardian. Salt and pepper hair slightly disheveled, wire-rimmed glasses askew, clutching a small bouquet of gas station flowers. There you are. I've been worried sick. He rushed toward my bed, then noticed Dr. Martinez. Oh. Are you discussing Maya's condition? I should be included in any medical consultations. Dr. Martinez stood slowly. I'm sorry, but patient confidentiality prevents me from discussing anything without explicit consent. Derek's smile flickered. I'm her legal guardian. I've been managing her Huntington's care since she was 11. I understand your concern, Mr. Walsh, but... It's fine, I interrupted, watching Derek's face. Dr. Martinez was just telling me about my blood work results from the surgery. Relief flooded his features. Good, good. Any complications we need to worry about? I know surgical stress can sometimes trigger episodes. Episodes. I'd never had a single episode in 11 years, but Derek always worried about them. Always used the possibility to keep me home, keep me quiet, keep me controlled. Actually, the results were surprising, I said, keeping my voice level. Apparently my genetic markers are completely normal. Clean bill of health. Derek went very still. That's wonderful news. Though of course, Huntington's doesn't always show up in routine blood work. The specialized testing is much more complex. Dr. Martinez cleared her throat. Actually, our genetic screening is quite comprehensive. I'm sure it is, Derek cut her off, moving closer to my bed. But Maya's case is complicated. Multiple specialists have been involved. Dr. Brennan specifically warned us that other doctors might misinterpret her results. About Dr. Brennan, I said, watching his eyes. Dar. Martinez mentioned something interesting about his practice. Derek's hand tightened on the bed rail. What kind of something? Well, apparently his office has no record of me as a patient. Isn't that strange? The silence lasted exactly 4 seconds this time. Derek's left eye developed a slight twitch, something I'd seen before when he was stressed about money, but had always attributed to his concern for my health. There must be some administrative error. You know how these medical offices are with their record keeping. He turned to Dr. Martinez. I'm sure if you spoke to Dr. Brennan directly. Dr. Brennan lost his license in 2011, Dr. Martinez said quietly. Derek's face went through several expressions in rapid succession, confusion, concern, and then something I'd never seen before. Something cold and calculating. I think there's been some kind of mistake. Maya, you're probably still groggy from the anesthesia. We should get you home so you can rest properly. Actually, I'm feeling remarkably clear-headed. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to his text messages. Clear enough to wonder why you've been so desperate to reach me. 12 calls seems like a lot. I was worried about you. Were you worried about me, or worried about what the doctors might find? Derek glanced at Dr. Martinez, then back at me. I don't understand what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm asking directly, have you been lying to me about my diagnosis? His pause lasted too long. Half a second too long, but in that moment I saw everything, the quick calculation behind his eyes, the slight shift in his posture as he moved from concerned guardian to something else entirely. Maya, you're clearly upset and confused. Let's discuss this at home. No, I said. Let's discuss this right here. Right now. Starting with the $316,000 you've stolen from my trust fund. Derek's face went white. Derek's mouth opened and closed twice before any sound came out. I don't know what kind of lies these people have been telling you, but... $316,153 to be exact, Dr. Martinez said, reading from her tablet. Withdrawn over 11 years for supposed medical expenses. Would you like to explain what those expenses were, Mr. Walsh? The transformation in Derek was immediate and unsettling. The concerned uncle mask slipped completely, replaced by something sharp and desperate. You have no right to discuss private financial matters with a patient who's clearly been given incorrect information. Maya is 22 years old, Dr. Martinez replied calmly. She has every right to know about her own accounts. Derek turned back to me, and I saw a stranger wearing my uncle's face. Maya, listen to me. These people don't understand your situation. They don't know how sick you really are. I'm not sick. The words felt powerful coming out of my mouth. I've never been sick. You've been feeding me vitamins and telling me they were life-saving medication. That's not. Show me the prescription bottles, Derek. He hesitated, then pulled 3 amber bottles from his jacket pocket. The same bottles he'd been giving me for years, always with strict instructions about timing and dosage. I held out my hand. Maya, you're not thinking clearly. Give them to me. Dr. Martinez stepped forward. I can verify the contents right now if you'd like, Mr. Walsh. Derek clutched the bottles tighter. These are specialized medications. You can't just. I snatched one of the bottles from his hand before he could react. The label read, Huntington's disease medication, take twice daily with food. But underneath, in smaller print that I'd never bothered to read, vitamin B complex, 100 milligrams. Vitamin B, I said out loud. 11 years of vitamin B. Derek's breathing became shallow. Maya, please. You don't understand the whole situation. Your parents' insurance money, I had to use it. You needed care, supervision. Do you have any idea how expensive it's been to take care of you all these years? Expensive? I felt something hot and dangerous rising in my chest. You collected $1,847 a month in disability benefits. For 11 years. That's over $240,000 in government payments alone, plus my parents' life insurance. And you're telling me it was expensive? I never asked for this responsibility, Derek snapped, his composure finally cracking. When your parents died, I had my own life, my own plans. I gave up everything to take care of a sick child. I wasn't sick. You would have been. It runs in the family. Your grandmother had it. I was protecting you from. Our grandmother died of a stroke at 78, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. I looked it up online years ago. There's no Huntington's disease in our family. Derek stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You looked it up. Of course I looked it up. I thought I was dying. But every time I asked you about family history, you changed the subject. Dr. Martinez stepped closer to my bed. Mr. Walsh, I need to inform you that we're required to report cases of suspected financial abuse to Adult Protective Services. This is ridiculous, Derek said, but sweat was beading on his forehead. Maya, tell them. Tell them how well I've taken care of you. The apartment, the food, the medical care. The studio apartment with the broken heater that I pay for with my disability checks, I said. The generic cereal and ramen noodles. The fake medical care from a doctor who lost his license 13 years ago. Derek's face went through several colors. I never meant for it to go this far. It started small, just a few withdrawals to cover expenses while I figured out what to do with you. But then the disability payments started coming, and you seemed fine living quietly, and I thought maybe it was better this way. Safer. Safer for who? He didn't answer, but I saw the truth in his eyes. Safer for him. Easier for him. More profitable for him. Where's the money, Derek? What did you spend $316,000 on? His hands were shaking now. I can pay it back. Not all at once, but I can set up a payment plan. Where is the money? I invested some of it. The market hasn't been great, but I can liquidate. You gambled with my parents' life insurance money? The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Derek's silence was answer enough, but the way he kept glancing at the door told me everything I needed to know about how deep this went. It wasn't gambling, he said finally. I made some investments. Real estate ventures. Cryptocurrency. Things that would have paid off if you hadn't been stealing from your dead brother's daughter to fund them. Dr. Martinez cleared her throat. Mr. Walsh, I'm going to have to ask you to step outside while we complete Maya's discharge paperwork. She can't be discharged without my signature, Derek said quickly. I'm her legal guardian. She's not capable of making medical decisions on her own. Something clicked into place in my mind. That's why you kept me isolated, isn't it? Not because of some fake disease, but because you needed me to stay dependent. Legally dependent. Derek's jaw tightened. Maya, you're 22 years old with no education beyond high school, no job experience, no life skills. I've been protecting you from a world you're not prepared for. I have an associate's degree in accounting from community college, I said. I earned it online over the past 2 years. With a 3.8 GPA. His face went slack. You, what? Did you think I was just sitting in that apartment all day feeling sorry for myself? I've been taking classes, Derek. Learning things. Including how to read financial statements. I looked directly at him. I know what embezzlement looks like. Dr. Martinez was typing rapidly on her tablet. Maya, given your age and mental competency, you have the right to revoke his guardianship status at any time. How long does that take? With evidence of financial abuse? We can file an emergency petition tonight. You could be legally independent by tomorrow afternoon. Derek stepped closer to my bed, and for the first time in 11 years, I felt afraid of him. Maya, listen to me very carefully. You don't understand how the world works. Without the disability benefits, without my support, you'll have nothing. Less than nothing. I'll have the truth. The truth doesn't pay rent, he snapped. And once you revoke the guardianship, those disability payments stop immediately. You'll be a perfectly healthy 22-year-old with no medical excuse for not working, no job history, and no money. Is that really what you want? I felt a chill run through me. He was right about the disability payments, $1,847 a month that I'd been receiving under false pretenses. Money I'd technically never been entitled to. That's fraud, I whispered. The disability benefits. I could go to jail for fraud. Derek's expression shifted to something almost like sympathy. Now you're starting to understand. We're both in this together, Maya. If this comes out, you'll be just as liable as I am. Maybe more so, since your name is on all the paperwork. Dr. Martinez looked up sharply. That's not how disability fraud works. Isn't it? Derek interrupted. Maya's been knowingly cashing those checks for 4 years since she turned 18. She's been living off government benefits for a condition she doesn't have. How do you think that looks to a federal prosecutor? My hands started shaking again, but this time from fear. I didn't know. Doesn't matter. Ignorance isn't a legal defense when it comes to federal benefits fraud. You're lying, I said, but my voice sounded weak even to me. Derek sat down in the visitor's chair, suddenly calm. Am I? Dar. Martinez, would you mind looking up the penalties for Social Security disability fraud? I believe it's up to 5 years in federal prison and full restitution of benefits received. The room felt like it was spinning. 4 years of benefits at $1,847 per month. That was over $88,000 I'd received since turning 18. Money that Derek was right, I'd been cashing those checks, depositing them, living off them. However, Derek continued, his voice taking on that familiar concerned uncle tone, if we handle this quietly, if we work together to fix the situation gradually, we might be able to avoid involving federal investigators. I looked at Dr. Martinez, desperate for her to contradict him, to tell me he was wrong. But she was staring at her tablet with a troubled expression. Maya, she said slowly, you might want to consult with a lawyer before making any decisions about reporting this. Derek smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. The room fell silent except for the hum of medical equipment and my own racing heartbeat. Derek's smile widened as he watched the implications sink in. Of course, there might be a way to handle this that protects both of us, he said, leaning back in his chair like we were discussing dinner plans instead of federal crimes. The disability benefits can be gradually reduced due to medical improvement. We tell Social Security your condition has stabilized enough for part-time work. No red flags, no investigations. And the trust fund money? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. That's more complicated, but not impossible to address. I still have some liquid assets. We could work out a repayment schedule that doesn't raise questions about where the money went originally. Dr. Martinez set down her tablet. Maya, I need to step out and make a phone call. Take your time deciding what you want to do. She gave me a meaningful look. Remember, you have options. More options than you might think right now. After she left, Derek moved his chair closer to my bed. She means well, but doctors don't understand the legal complexities of situations like this. Maya, I know you're angry with me. You have every right to be. But think about what happens if this becomes a criminal matter. You mean what happens to you? What happens to both of us, he corrected. I've been doing some research since I got your text about the surgery. Did you know that in cases of disability fraud, they don't just go after the person who filed the false claim? They investigate everyone who benefited from the payments. Every check you deposited, every rent payment made with that money, every grocery purchase. I closed my eyes, trying to think clearly. But I can prove I didn't know. The fake medical records, the vitamins labeled as medication. Can you? Because I have 11 years of documentation showing that you were a willing participant in your medical care. You signed forms, Maya. Every year when we renewed your benefits, you signed attestations confirming your continued disability. My stomach dropped. He was right. Every January, Derek would bring me a stack of forms to sign for the disability review. I'd always sign them without reading carefully because he told me it was just routine paperwork to continue my benefits. Those signatures prove you were aware of the nature of the benefits you were receiving, Derek continued. And the fact that you never sought a second medical opinion, never questioned your diagnosis, never tried to verify Dr. Brennan's credentials, it doesn't look like innocent ignorance. It looks like willful blindness. Because I trusted you, I whispered. I know. And I'm sorry it came to this. But Maya, we can fix this together. Quietly. The important thing is that you're healthy. You have your whole life ahead of you. Don't throw that away over money that's already spent. I opened my eyes and looked at him, really looked at him. The man who'd raised me, who I'd called every day when I started college classes to update him on my progress. Who'd seemed genuinely proud when I told him about my grades, who'd brought me soup when I had the flu last winter. How long have you known? I asked. That I wasn't actually sick. Derek was quiet for a long moment. I suspected after the first few years when you never developed any symptoms. But Maya, by then you were settled, stable. You were doing well with the routine we'd established. I thought maybe it was better. How long, Derek? I knew for certain 3 years ago. I had some health issues of my own and needed real medical care. The doctor I was seeing mentioned that genetic testing had become much more sophisticated and suggested you get updated screening. When I looked into it, I realized there was no way Dr. Brennan's original diagnosis could have been accurate. 3 years. He'd known for 3 years that I was healthy while continuing to collect my disability payments and withdraw money from my trust fund. What health issues? I asked. Derek shifted uncomfortably. It's not relevant. What health issues did you pay for with my parents' life insurance money? His face went red. I had some cardiac problems. Required surgery. The recovery was expensive. How expensive? Maya. How much of my money did you spend on your heart surgery? The answer was written all over his face before he spoke. $43,000. But I was planning to pay it back once the real estate investments matured. I stared at him in disbelief. You used my parents' life insurance money to pay for surgery to save your own life, while telling me I was dying. Derek stood up abruptly. I think we're both too emotional right now to make rational decisions. Let me take you home so you can rest and we can discuss this properly tomorrow. I'm not going anywhere with you. Maya, be reasonable. You can't stay in the hospital indefinitely, and you don't have anywhere else to go. He was right about that, and we both knew it. No friends, no other family, no savings account in my own name. Derek had made sure of that. But as I looked at his face, at the mixture of desperation and calculation in his eyes, I realized something important. For the first time in 11 years, Derek needed something from me more than I needed something from him. And that changed everything. Actually, Derek, I do have somewhere to go, I said, pulling out my phone. I've been in contact with someone you probably forgot existed. His confident expression faltered. What do you mean? I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. Jennifer Chin. My mom's sister. Turns out she's been looking for me for years. Derek went very still. That's impossible. Your mother was an only child. No, she wasn't. Jennifer lives in Portland now. She's a nurse practitioner, married with 2 kids. I held up my phone, showing him a text conversation from 3 months ago. She found me on social media when I posted about my community college graduation. The color drained from Derek's face. You've been talking to her? 4 months. She's been asking why I never responded to the letters and cards she sent over the years. Apparently, she tried to maintain contact after my parents died, but you told her I was too sick for visitors and that correspondence might be upsetting for someone with a terminal illness. Derek's hands clenched into fists. Maya, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. She also mentioned something interesting about my parents' will. See, she was there when they had it drawn up. She remembers them discussing the life insurance policy, but she also remembers them setting up something else. An education fund. Separate from the life insurance. Derek's breathing became shallow. There's no education fund. Isn't there? Because Jennifer remembers the lawyer mentioning a $150,000 college fund that was supposed to be held in trust until I turned 18, then transferred directly to me for educational expenses. The silence stretched for nearly 10 seconds. Derek's left eye was twitching rapidly now. That fund was consolidated with the other accounts for easier management, he said finally. It's all part of the same trust. So it does exist. Existed. Past tense. Maya, you have to understand, managing your care required $150,000 for college that I never knew about, on top of the $340,000 life insurance policy. I did the math quickly in my head. That's almost $500,000 my parents left me. How much is actually left, Derek? And don't lie to me this time. Derek slumped in his chair. Maybe 8,000 across all accounts. 8,000. I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. You stole nearly $500,000 from me. I didn't steal anything. I used it to take care of you, to provide for. For what? The apartment costs $800 a month and I pay that with disability checks. Groceries are maybe $200 a month. What did you spend $482,000 on, Derek? He was quiet for so long I thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. The cardiac surgery was $43,000. But before that, there were some business investments that didn't pan out. A restaurant in 2018 that failed after 8 months. Some cryptocurrency purchases that lost value. A down payment on a condo in Florida that fell through when the developer went bankrupt. You gambled away my parents' life insurance money on cryptocurrency and a Florida condo. They weren't gambles. They were investments. Sound investments that would have paid off if you hadn't been playing with money that wasn't yours. Derek looked up at me with something that might have been desperation. Maya, I can make this right. Give me time, and I can. Time's up, I said, pressing Jennifer's number on my phone. Aunt Jenny. It's Maya. I think it's time we met in person. Derek lunged forward and grabbed my phone before I could finish dialing. Maya, don't. Please. Give me back my phone. Just listen to me for 1 minute. 1 minute, and then you can call whoever you want. His hands were shaking as he held my phone. Your Aunt Jennifer doesn't know the whole story. What whole story? Derek sat back down heavily, suddenly looking older than his 51 years. Your parents didn't just die in a car accident, Maya. They were driving to meet with a lawyer because they discovered some irregularities in their finances. I felt my chest tighten. What kind of irregularities? I was managing some investments for them. Your father asked me to handle a few stock purchases, some bonds. Nothing major, maybe $30,000 initially. Derek's voice became very quiet. But the market was good, and I thought I could do better for them. I moved the money around, took some risks that I thought would pay off. And they didn't. They did at first. I was making good returns, your parents were happy. But then I got overconfident. Started using some of their money for my own investments, planning to pay it back when everything settled. He looked up at me. By the time they wanted to cash out to buy a bigger house, I'd lost almost all of it. My stomach dropped. How much? $87,000. Everything they'd saved for the house down payment, plus the original investments. So they were driving to see a lawyer about you stealing from them. Derek flinched. They were driving to see a lawyer about financial planning. I was going to tell them everything that night, explain how I could pay it back over time. But the accident happened first. The room felt like it was tilting. And when they died, you saw an opportunity. I saw a chance to make things right, Derek said quickly. The life insurance money could cover what I'd lost from their accounts, plus provide for your care. It seemed like justice, in a way. Justice? I stared at him. You fabricated a terminal illness to steal my inheritance because you'd already stolen my parents' savings. It wasn't supposed to be permanent. The fake diagnosis was just to buy time while I figured out how to repay everything without destroying the family. But then the disability payment started, and you seemed content with our quiet life, and I thought maybe you could just keep stealing forever. Derek's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at it and went pale. We need to leave. Now. Who was that? Hospital administration. They want to schedule a meeting about your insurance discrepancies. He stood up abruptly. Maya, if we don't handle this carefully, if they start investigating the disability claims, it won't just be about the money anymore. They'll discover what really happened to your parents' original accounts. What do you mean? I mean they'll find out that I was embezzling from your parents before they died. That's not just disability fraud, Maya. That's a pattern of financial crimes going back 12 years. They'll classify you as either a victim or an accomplice, and given that you've been signing benefit paperwork for 4 years. My hands went cold. You're saying they might think I knew about all of it. I'm saying we need to present a united front, or we're both going to prison. The door opened and Dr. Martinez returned, followed by a woman in a navy blue suit carrying a briefcase. Maya, this is Detective Sarah Morrison from the Financial Crimes Unit, Dr. Martinez said. She'd like to ask you a few questions. Derek shot me a look that was equal parts warning and plea. Detective Morrison smiled politely. This is just a routine inquiry about some inconsistencies we discovered in your medical and financial records. Nothing to worry about. But her eyes were sharp, and I realized that Derek and I had just run out of time to handle this quietly. Detective Morrison set her briefcase on a small table beside my bed and pulled out a digital recorder. With your permission, I'd like to record our conversation. This helps ensure accuracy and protects everyone involved. Derek shifted in his chair. Should Maya have a lawyer present? She's been through surgery today, and... Mr. Walsh, I'll be speaking with you separately, Detective Morrison said without looking at him. Maya, you're not under arrest or being charged with anything. This is an informational interview. You can stop at any time or request an attorney. I nodded, watching Derek's face grow increasingly pale. I'll talk to you. Excellent. She pressed record. Maya, can you tell me about your disability benefits? When did you start receiving them? I was 12 when Derek first applied. The payments started coming to an account he managed until I turned 18, then they were direct deposited to my own account. And you believe these payments were legitimate? Derek leaned forward. Detective, Maya was a minor when the original claim was filed. She had no reason to question. Mr. Walsh, please don't interrupt. Detective Morrison's voice was steel-wrapped in velvet. Maya, did you ever see the original medical documentation that supported your disability claim? No. Derek always handled the paperwork. He said the medical details were too complex and might upset me. But you did sign renewal forms each year after turning 18, correct? My stomach clenched. Yes, but I trusted that Derek was telling me the truth about my condition. The forms were just routine paperwork. Detective Morrison made a note. Maya, I need to ask you about something else. We've discovered that your uncle had access to multiple accounts in your name. Were you aware of a college education fund your parents established? Derek went rigid. Detective, I think you should know that Maya has been under significant stress. Mr. Walsh, one more interruption and I'll have to ask you to leave. She turned back to me. Maya. I just found out about it today. Jennifer, my Aunt Jennifer, remembered my parents mentioning it. Derek says he used that money for my care too. How much did Mr. Walsh tell you was in that fund? He said it was $150,000 originally, but it's been spent on my medical expenses. Detective Morrison nodded, making another note. Maya, our investigation shows the education fund contained $147,000 when you turned 18 in 2019. The entire amount was withdrawn over 6 months in 2020. Do you recall being particularly ill during that period? Any expensive treatments? I thought back to 2020. No, I was fine. That was when I started community college online. Derek said I was responding really well to my medications. Medications that we now know were vitamins. Right. Derek's breathing was becoming audible. Detective Morrison glanced at him, then continued. Maya, in March 2020, there was a single withdrawal of $89,000 from your education fund. The bank memo lists it as emergency medical procedures. Do you remember any emergency procedures that spring? No. I wasn't sick at all in 2020. Mr. Walsh, Detective Morrison said, finally addressing him directly. Can you explain what emergency medical procedure cost $89,000 in March 2020? Derek's silence stretched for nearly 15 seconds. There might be an error in the bank records. I'd need to review my files. We've already reviewed your files, Mr. Walsh. March 2020 was when you purchased a boat. A 2019 Sea Ray Sundancer. Purchase price, $87,500. The room went dead quiet. I stared at Derek in disbelief. You bought a boat with my college money? Maya, it was an investment. Boats hold their value, and I thought. You bought a boat. My voice was getting louder. While telling me we couldn't afford anything better than generic cereal, you spent my college fund on a boat? Detective Morrison held up her hand. Maya, there's more. Mr. Walsh, where is this boat currently located? Derek slumped forward. I had to sell it. Last year. The marina fees were more expensive than I anticipated. For how much? $32,000. I felt something snap inside my chest. You lost $55,000 on a boat. $55,000 of my college money. The boat market crashed during COVID. Stop. Detective Morrison's voice cut through Derek's excuse. Mr. Walsh, you're going to need that attorney now. Maya, I need to ask you one final question, and I want you to think carefully before answering. I nodded, my hands shaking with rage. In the past 4 years, since you turned 18, did you ever suspect that your medical condition might not be real? Ever question why you felt healthy while supposedly having a terminal illness? The weight of her question settled over me. This wasn't just about the money anymore. This was about whether I was a victim or a co-conspirator. Derek was staring at me with desperate eyes, silently pleading. But I was done protecting the man who'd stolen my entire life. Yes, I said clearly. I suspected something was wrong. Detective Morrison leaned forward slightly. Can you tell me more about those suspicions? I took a deep breath, acutely aware that Derek was holding his breath beside me. About 2 years ago, I started researching Huntington's disease more thoroughly for a paper I was writing for my biology class. The symptoms I read about. They didn't match my experience at all. What did you do with that information? I asked Derek about it. He said that my case was unusual, that Dr. Brennan had explained I was lucky to have such a mild presentation of the disease. I glanced at Derek, whose face had gone ashen. But I also started paying more attention to things that hadn't made sense before. Such as, the medication bottles never had proper pharmacy labels. Just typed stickers. And Derek always insisted on picking them up himself, never letting me go to the pharmacy. My voice grew stronger as the memories crystallized. Last year, I offered to take over managing my own prescription since I was doing so well in my accounting classes. Derek got agitated. He said it was too risky, that any disruption in my care routine could trigger a rapid decline. Detective Morrison made notes. Did you ever attempt to contact Dr. Brennan directly? Derek shifted in his chair, and I heard a small, desperate sound escape his throat. I tried to, 6 months ago. I wanted to ask about newer treatments I'd read about online. I called the number Derek had given me years ago. I paused, remembering the confusion I'd felt. The number was disconnected. When I told Derek, he said Dr. Brennan had changed practices and he'd get me the new contact information. He never did. Maya, Derek started. Mr. Walsh, remain silent, Detective Morrison warned. Maya, what did you do then? I looked up Dr. Brennan online. I found articles about his license being revoked, but I also found something else. There was a news story from 2019 about a disability fraud case where someone had forged documents using Dr. Brennan's old credentials. Detective Morrison's eyebrows rose. You saw that news story? Yes. It was about a woman who'd been collecting disability benefits for multiple sclerosis based on fake medical records attributed to Dr. Brennan. She was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. I looked directly at Derek. That's when I started keeping track of everything. Derek's face went white. Keeping track of what? I started documenting dates, taking pictures of the medication bottles, saving screenshots of our text conversations about my doctor visits. I pulled out my phone. I've been building a file for months, Derek. I just didn't know what to do with it. Detective Morrison extended her hand. May I see that documentation? I unlocked my phone and opened the folder I'd labeled medical records. Screenshots of Derek's texts about appointments that never happened, photos of vitamin bottles with fake prescription labels, even a recording I'd made of myself questioning him about Dr. Brennan's credentials from 3 months ago. Derek stared at the phone in horror. You recorded our conversations. Just the ones about my medical care. I wanted to make sure I understood everything correctly. I handed the phone to Detective Morrison. There's also a spreadsheet where I tracked the disability payments against what Derek said we were spending on my care. The numbers never added up. Detective Morrison scrolled through the files, her expression growing more serious. Maya, this is very thorough documentation. How long have you been keeping these records? 8 months. Ever since I saw that news article about Dr. Brennan being used in other fraud cases. Derek slumped forward, burying his face in his hands. Maya, why didn't you just ask me directly if you suspected something? I stared at him in disbelief. I did ask you, Derek. Multiple times. You told me I was paranoid, that questioning my medical care was a sign that the disease might be affecting my cognitive function. You said I needed to trust you because doubt could literally kill me. Detective Morrison looked up from my phone. Mr. Walsh, I think it's time for you to contact that attorney. You're going to need representation before we continue this conversation. Derek's shoulders began to shake. I never meant for it to go this far. When I saw that Maya was getting suspicious, I thought about telling her the truth. But by then, there was so much money involved, so many lies. How much money total, Mr. Walsh? All accounts combined. Derek was quiet for a long moment. $487,000 from the insurance and education fund. Plus about $240,000 in disability payments over 11 years. $727,000, Detective Morrison said, writing the figure down. And how much remains? Maybe $12,000 across all accounts. I felt dizzy. You spent over $700,000 of my money. Derek finally looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. Maya, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I kept thinking I could fix it, that the next investment would pay off and I could put everything back. Detective Morrison stood up. Mr. Walsh, you're under arrest for financial elder abuse, disability fraud, and embezzlement. You have the right to remain silent. As she read Derek his rights, he kept staring at me with a mixture of shame and desperate pleading. Maya, please. Don't let them destroy our family over money. But as the handcuffs clicked into place, I realized something profound. We'd never been a family. I'd been his victim for 11 years. And now, finally, I was free. As the police car pulled away with Derek in the back seat, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 11 years, complete silence in my own head. No countdown clock ticking toward my 30th birthday. No mental calculations about how many months I might have left. Just quiet. Dr. Martinez sat back down beside my bed. How are you feeling? Like I don't know who I am anymore. I stared at the ceiling tiles, trying to process everything. For 11 years, I've been Maya Chen, the girl who's dying of Huntington's disease. Now I'm just Maya Chen. And I have no idea what that means. Detective Morrison finished packing up her equipment. Maya, there are some practical matters we need to discuss. Your disability benefits will be suspended immediately pending investigation. Do you have somewhere safe to stay while we sort this out? The reality hit me like cold water. I don't have any money that isn't fraudulent. The apartment is paid through this month with disability money, but after that. I pulled up my bank account on my phone. I have $247 in checking and about $30 in cash. What about your Aunt Jennifer? I've been texting with her for months, but we've never actually met. I can't just call her and say, hi, I'm not dying after all, can I move to Portland? Dr. Martinez checked something on her tablet. Maya, there might be some options. The hospital has a social services department that helps patients transition out of abusive situations. And given the circumstances, I'm not sure I qualify for help. Technically, I've been committing fraud for 4 years. The weight of that reality was starting to sink in. Detective Morrison, am I going to be charged? That depends on several factors. Your cooperation, the evidence of coercion, your age when the fraud began. She paused. Maya, the documentation you kept actually helps your case significantly. It shows you were actively investigating discrepancies, not willfully ignoring them. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer, asterisk haven't heard from you in a few days. Everything okay, asterisk. I stared at the message, then made a decision. Instead of texting back, I called her. Maya. I was just thinking about you. How are your classes going? Jennifer, I need to tell you something, and it's going to sound insane. Okay, you're scaring me a little. What's wrong? I took a deep breath. I'm not sick. I never was. Derek has been lying about everything for 11 years. The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. Jennifer. Are you there? I'm here. Her voice was very quiet. Maya, what do you mean you're not sick? I mean I don't have Huntington's disease. I never did. Derek fabricated the diagnosis to collect disability benefits and steal my inheritance. The words came pouring out, the fake doctor, the vitamins disguised as medication, the missing trust fund money, Derek's arrest 20 minutes ago. When I finished, Jennifer was crying. That son of a bitch, she whispered. Maya, I tried to stay in contact with you for years. Derek kept telling me you were too fragile for visitors, that any excitement could worsen your condition. He said the doctors recommended minimal outside contact. He isolated me from everyone who might have questioned his story. Your parents would be absolutely devastated. They loved you so much, Maya. They set up those funds because they wanted to make sure you could do anything, be anything. Her voice grew stronger. Where are you right now? Still in the hospital in Phoenix. I'm booking a flight. I'll be there tomorrow morning. Jennifer, wait. There's something else you need to know. The disability fraud, I could be in legal trouble. I signed papers for 4 years without knowing they were false. If you help me, it might complicate things for you and your family. Another pause. Maya, honey, you were victimized by someone who was supposed to protect you. We'll figure out the legal stuff together. You're not going through this alone anymore. After we hung up, I realized I was crying for the first time since learning the truth. Not from sadness, but from relief. For the first time in 11 years, someone was coming to help me who didn't want anything in return. Dr. Martinez squeezed my shoulder. Maya, there's one more thing. We can discharge you tomorrow morning, but I want to run some additional tests first. What kind of tests? Complete physical, updated vaccinations, nutritional assessment. You've been living under medical neglect for over a decade. We need to establish a real baseline for your actual health. I nodded, then had a terrifying thought. Dr. Martinez, what if there actually is something wrong with me? Something Derek missed while he was busy making up diseases? She smiled. Then we'll deal with it properly. But Maya, based on your blood work and physical exam, you're remarkably healthy for someone who's been told they were dying for 11 years. As night fell outside my hospital window, I started making a list on my phone, things I'd never done because I thought I was dying. College applications I'd never submitted. Jobs I'd never applied for. Friends I'd never made. The list grew longer and longer, and with each item, I felt something growing inside me that I'd never experienced before. Not hope, not yet. But possibility. The next morning brought Jennifer Chin Rodriguez through my hospital room door like a force of nature. She was smaller than I'd expected, barely 5'2", but she moved with the efficient confidence of someone used to handling medical emergencies. Dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, scrubs visible under her jacket, and eyes that were unmistakably my mother's. Maya, she breathed, stopping just inside the doorway. Oh my God, you look exactly like Sarah at your age. For a moment we just stared at each other, 11 years of stolen time hanging between us. Then she crossed the room and pulled me into a hug that smelled like lavender and antiseptic. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I should have fought harder to stay in your life. I should have questioned Derek's excuses. You couldn't have known, I said, but even as the words came out, I wondered if that was true. How many red flags had people missed? How many questions had gone unasked? Jennifer pulled back and studied my face with a nurse's clinical eye. How are you feeling? Really feeling, not what Derek taught you to say. Confused. Angry. Terrified. I paused. Free, maybe. I'm not sure what that feels like yet. She nodded and sat down in the visitor's chair. Maya, I need to tell you something about your parents' will. Something Derek definitely didn't want you to know. My stomach clenched. More money. Not money. A provision. She pulled a manila folder from her bag. Your parents named me as backup guardian in case anything happened to Derek. They were worried about his gambling habits even then. I felt the air leave my lungs. They knew Derek had a gambling problem. Your father mentioned it to me about 6 months before the accident. Derek had borrowed money from them twice for what he called investment opportunities that never paid off. Your parents were starting to have doubts about his financial judgment. So why did they make him my guardian at all? Jennifer's expression darkened. They didn't. Not initially. The original will named me as your primary guardian, with Derek as backup. But 3 days after your parents died, Derek presented a revised will naming him as primary guardian. The room started spinning. He forged my parents' will. I suspected it at the time, but I was grieving and overwhelmed with my own life. Miguel had just been born, I was working 12-hour shifts. She shook her head. I should have fought it in court, but Derek seemed so devoted to taking care of you. And when he said you were terminally ill, I thought maybe it was better for you to have stability rather than a legal battle. I stared at the folder in her hands. Do you have proof? I have the original will your parents filed with their attorney in 2011. Derek's version was filed with a different law firm, one that went out of business in 2015. She opened the folder and pulled out a document. Maya, according to your parents' real will, Derek was never supposed to have access to your trust funds. I was supposed to manage them until you turned 25. The implications hit me like a physical blow. So not only did he steal my inheritance, he stole it using a forged document. That's what it looks like. I've already contacted the attorney who handled your parents' original estate. She's been trying to reach you for years, but Derek told her you'd moved and left no forwarding address. My hands were shaking as I took the will from her. My parents' signatures looked different from the versions I'd seen on Derek's paperwork, more natural, less carefully traced. Jennifer, how much trouble am I in? Legally, I mean. She was quiet for a moment, and I could see her choosing her words carefully. The federal prosecutor I spoke with this morning thinks Derek's arrest will work in your favor. But Maya, there's something else. The disability fraud investigation uncovered other victims. Other victims? Derek was managing finances for 3 elderly clients before your parents died. The FBI found evidence that he'd been embezzling from them too. She leaned forward. He's looking at potentially 15 to 20 years in federal prison. I felt a complex mix of satisfaction and horror. Good. But that doesn't help me with the disability money I took for 4 years. Actually, it might. The prosecutor is offering plea agreements to Derek's victims in exchange for testimony. You'd have to pay back the benefits you received after turning 18, but no jail time. How much would I owe? Jennifer consulted her notes. Roughly $88,000 in benefits, plus penalties and interest. Probably $110,000 total. I laughed bitterly. Perfect. I owe more money than Derek left in all my accounts combined. Maya, there's one more thing. Jennifer's voice became very gentle. The original attorney found something else in your parents' files. A small life insurance policy they took out specifically for your education. Derek never knew about it because it was held by a different company. My heart stopped. How much? $50,000. It was supposed to pay out when you turned 18, but since no one filed a claim. It's still there. With 4 years of accumulated interest, it's worth about $57,000 now. For the first time in 24 hours, I felt like I could breathe properly. It wasn't enough to pay back everything I owed, but it was a start. More than that, it was proof that my parents had actually cared about my future, that somewhere in this mess of lies and theft, their love for me had survived. There's just one problem, Jennifer continued. To claim the insurance money, we'll need to prove identity fraud regarding the forged will. That means Derek's charges just got significantly more serious. Through my hospital window, I could see storm clouds gathering over Phoenix. Derek's legal troubles were just beginning, and somehow, I was both his victim and the key witness who would put him away for decades. The next morning brought a visitor I wasn't expecting, a federal prosecutor named Amanda Chen, no relation, despite the name. She was younger than I'd imagined, maybe early 30s, with sharp eyes and a briefcase that looked like it could hold someone's entire future. Maya, I know this is overwhelming, but we need to move quickly, she said, settling into the chair Jennifer had vacated an hour earlier. Derek's attorney is pushing for a plea bargain, and what he's offering could significantly impact your situation. My stomach dropped. What kind of plea bargain? He wants to plead guilty to disability fraud and simple theft, with a recommendation for 5 years maximum. In exchange, he'd provide full restitution to all victims and cooperate with our investigation into the forged will. That sounds reasonable. Amanda's expression was grim. It is reasonable, for him. But Maya, if we accept that plea, it limits our ability to pursue the more serious charges. Wire fraud, identity theft, forgery of legal documents, those carry much harsher penalties. How much harsher? 25 to 30 years instead of 5. I stared at her, trying to process the implications. You're saying I have to choose between getting my money back quickly or making sure Derek actually pays for what he did? Not exactly. Here's the complication. Derek claims he can provide full restitution, but only if he avoids the longer sentence. He says he has assets we haven't discovered yet, investments, accounts, property, that he'll liquidate to repay everyone. Jennifer, who had been listening quietly from the corner, spoke up. What kind of assets are we talking about? Amanda consulted her notes. He mentioned a storage unit in Tucson with valuable collectibles. Some kind of cryptocurrency wallet. And apparently he's been making payments on a property in Nevada under an assumed name. An assumed name? I felt sick. How many people has Derek been pretending to be? That's what we're trying to figure out. The Nevada property is titled to someone called Derek Mitchell. Same first name, different last name, but the social security number traces back to a man who died in 2008. The scope of Derek's deception was expanding by the hour. So he's been living a double life this entire time. Triple life, potentially. We've also found evidence of a third identity, David Walsh, with its own bank account and credit history. Amanda leaned forward. Maya, this goes much deeper than your case. Derek appears to have been running multiple long-term fraud schemes simultaneously. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, Maya, it's Derek. I know you're angry, but please don't let them destroy everything. There's more at stake than you realize, I showed the text to Amanda, whose jaw tightened. He's not supposed to have phone access without his attorney present. Someone smuggled him a contraband phone. Another text appeared, the Nevada house has $180,000 equity. The storage unit has coins worth at least $50,000. I can give you everything back, but only if I'm not facing 30 years, He's trying to negotiate directly with you, Jennifer said. That's witness intimidation. But as I stared at the message, I realized something else. Derek was scared. Really scared. For 11 years, he'd controlled every aspect of my life through lies and manipulation. Now he was reduced to smuggling text messages from jail, desperately trying to maintain some leverage. A third message, Maya, please. I raised you. We're family. Don't let them turn you against me over money, That last text triggered something cold and sharp in my chest. After stealing over $700,000 from me, after convincing me I was dying, after isolating me from everyone who might have helped, he still thought he could manipulate me with guilt about family loyalty. I looked up at Amanda. What happens if I testify against him for the more serious charges? With your documentation and testimony, plus the forged will evidence, we could get convictions on all counts. But it means a longer trial, more uncertainty, and Derek might spend everything on legal fees before we can recover it. And if I support his plea bargain? You'd get restitution faster, but he serves minimal time. And Maya, there's something else. If Derek only serves 5 years, he'll be out when he's 56. Still young enough to do this to someone else. I thought about the elderly clients Jennifer had mentioned. Other victims whose trust Derek had violated, whose savings he'd stolen. How many more people like me were out there? My phone buzzed again, the cryptocurrency alone is worth $75,000. I can transfer it all to you tomorrow if you tell the prosecutor you want a plea deal, I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Phoenix skyline. Somewhere out there, Derek was sitting in a jail cell, still believing he could control me with promises and threats. But I wasn't the same scared, isolated girl he'd been manipulating for 11 years. I was someone who had spent 8 months secretly documenting his lies. Someone who had survived discovering that her entire life was built on deception. Someone who had $57,000 in forgotten insurance money and an aunt who flew across the country to help her. I turned back to Amanda. I want to testify for the serious charges. Maya, are you sure? The money. The money was never really mine anyway, I said. It was my parents'. And they wouldn't want Derek to get away with this just so I could recover what was already stolen. Amanda nodded slowly. This means Derek will probably fight harder. His attorney will try to paint you as a willing participant in the fraud. Let him try. I have 11 years of evidence that says otherwise. As I spoke the words, I realized something had fundamentally changed inside me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of Derek anymore. The trial preparation consumed the next 3 months of my life in ways I never expected. Amanda Chen's office became my second home as we built the case against Derek, and with each new piece of evidence we uncovered, the scope of his deception grew more staggering. Maya, we found something else, Amanda said during our Tuesday morning meeting in late February. She slid a manila folder across the conference table. Remember that storage unit in Tucson Derek mentioned? I opened the folder to find photographs of what looked like a small warehouse filled with antiques, artwork, and collectibles. This is all his. According to the rental agreement signed by Derek Mitchell, his Nevada alias, he's been paying for this unit since 2015. The contents are insured for $180,000. Jennifer, who had moved to Phoenix temporarily to help with my case, whistled low. Where did he get the money to buy all this? Amanda pulled out an inventory sheet. That's the interesting part. The purchase dates align almost perfectly with major withdrawals from Maya's trust fund. Look here, $15,000 withdrawn in March 2018 for specialized medical equipment, and 3 days later, Derek Mitchell purchased a Civil War era medical kit for $14,200. I stared at the photograph of an antique surgical kit in its velvet-lined case. He bought Civil War medical equipment with money he told me was for my Huntington's treatment. It gets worse. This Tiffany lamp, she pointed to another photo, $8,500, purchased the same week you had that supposed emergency consultation that cost $8,800. The irony was almost funny. Derek had been so paranoid about maintaining his medical lies that he'd actually started collecting medical antiques, as if surrounding himself with the props would make his deception more real. What's the total value of everything in storage? Conservative estimate. $220,000. But here's the problem, Derek's attorney is claiming the collection belongs to his Nevada identity, not his Arizona one. They're arguing that Derek Walsh and Derek Mitchell are legally separate entities, so the collection can't be seized to pay Maya's restitution. Jennifer shook her head. That's insane. It's the same person. Legally insane, yes. But it's going to complicate the asset recovery process. Amanda closed the folder. There's something else. We found Derek's cryptocurrency wallet. My pulse quickened. How much? Current value is $127,000. But Maya, the wallet was funded entirely with transfers from your disability payments. Every month for 3 years, Derek was converting $300 to $400 of your benefit money into Bitcoin. I felt that familiar cold rage settling in my chest. While I'd been eating ramen noodles and wearing secondhand clothes, Derek had been playing the cryptocurrency market with my disability money. Can we recover it? That's complicated too. The wallet is password protected, and Derek claims he doesn't remember the access codes. His attorney says the stress of incarceration has affected his memory. Convenient memory loss. Very convenient. But Maya, there's good news. Remember that Nevada property? I nodded. Derek's house in Las Vegas had become another focal point of our investigation. We got the property appraised. Current market value is $340,000, with about $190,000 in equity after the mortgage. And unlike the storage unit, this one's going to be much harder for Derek's attorney to claim as a separate entity. Jennifer leaned forward. Why's that? Because David Walsh, Derek's third identity, applied for the mortgage using Maya's social security number as a cosigner. Without her knowledge, of course. My hands clenched into fists. He used my identity to buy himself a house. A very nice house. 4 bedrooms, pool, free car garage. The mortgage payments were coming directly from your trust fund, listed as residential care facility costs. For 3 years, Derek had been telling me we couldn't afford a better apartment in Phoenix while he was literally making mortgage payments on his secret house in Vegas. Every month when I'd asked about maybe finding a place with better heating or a second bedroom, he'd shown me spreadsheets proving we couldn't afford more than our $800 a month studio. Meanwhile, he'd been paying $2,200 a month for a house with a pool. There's more, Amanda continued. We found property tax records showing Derek was claiming the Nevada house as a rental investment on his tax returns. He was getting depreciation write-offs on a property he bought with stolen money. So he was committing tax fraud too. Multiple layers of it. The IRS is now involved as a separate investigation. Amanda's phone buzzed and she glanced at it. Actually, that's them now. Maya, they want to interview you next week about the disability payments and whether you were aware of Derek's tax filing status. My stomach dropped. Am I in trouble with the IRS too? Probably not, but they need to verify that you weren't complicit in a tax fraud. It's routine when disability benefits are involved in criminal cases. As Amanda stepped out to take her call, Jennifer squeezed my shoulder. How are you holding up with all this? Honestly, I keep discovering new ways Derek screwed me over, and each one makes me angrier. I gestured at the photos spread across the table. Look at this stuff, Jenny. He spent my parents' money on antique medical equipment while telling me I was dying. There's something sick about that. There's something sick about all of it. When Amanda returned, her expression was grim. Maya, we have a problem. Derek's attorney just filed a motion claiming you were aware of at least some of the fraudulent activity. My blood went cold. Based on what? They're claiming that your documentation, all those screenshots and recordings you made, prove you suspected fraud but continued accepting benefits anyway. They're trying to paint you as a co-conspirator who only came forward when you got caught. The room felt like it was spinning. Derek wasn't just defending himself, he was actively trying to destroy me. Can they do that? They can try. Maya, this changes everything about how we approach trial. We need to be prepared for Derek's team to come after you directly. As I stared at the evidence photos scattered across the conference table, Derek's secret house, his antique collection, his hidden cryptocurrency, I realized the battle was just beginning. Derek wasn't going to go down without trying to take me with him. The courtroom felt like a fishbowl as I took the witness stand on March 15th. Derek sat 30 feet away at the defendant's table, wearing an orange jumpsuit that made him look smaller and older than I remembered. For the first time in 11 years, I was looking at him as an equal, not as his dependent victim. Maya, please tell the jury about the morning you discovered the truth, Amanda Chin said, her voice clear and professional. I looked directly at Derek as I answered. Dr. Martinez asked if I was aware of my real diagnosis. When I said I had Huntington's disease, she told me I'd never had it. That I was perfectly healthy. Derek's attorney, a sharp-faced man named Robert Sterling, had already tried to paint me as a knowing participant during his opening statement. But as I testified about the fake medications, the forged doctor visits, the isolation Derek had imposed, I watched several jurors' expressions shift from skepticism to disgust. And when did you first suspect something was wrong? Amanda asked. 2 years ago, when I researched my condition for a college paper and realized my symptoms didn't match the disease. I pulled out my phone, the same one containing months of secret documentation. That's when I started recording our conversations and taking pictures of everything. Sterling objected repeatedly, but Judge Harrison allowed the evidence. As Amanda played the audio recording I'd made of Derek explaining why I couldn't contact Dr. Brennan directly, I saw Derek close his eyes. On cross-examination, Sterling tried to make me look calculating. Miss Chen, isn't it true that you continued cashing disability checks for months after you suspected fraud? I continued cashing checks while I tried to understand what was happening to me, I replied. When someone you trust completely tells you that questioning your medical care could kill you, you don't just stop believing them overnight. But you were documenting evidence. That suggests premeditation. It suggests I was trying to figure out if the person who raised me was lying about everything I thought I knew about my life. My voice grew stronger. I documented because I hoped I was wrong. The prosecution's case took 4 days to present. Bank records showing Derek's elaborate web of false identities. The storage unit filled with antiques bought with my trust fund money. The Nevada house purchased using my social security number without my knowledge. The cryptocurrency wallet funded with my disability payments. Most damaging was the forged will. A handwriting expert testified that Derek had traced my parents' signatures from other documents, and the attorney who'd filed the fake paperwork admitted Derek had paid him $5,000 to backdate the filing. Derek's defense lasted exactly 90 minutes. Sterling called character witnesses who described Derek as a devoted guardian, but under cross-examination, most admitted they hadn't actually seen us interact in years. Derek himself didn't testify, probably because Amanda had a dozen felony charges ready to file based on the additional evidence we'd uncovered. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts, the foreman announced. Derek's shoulders sagged as Judge Harrison read the verdict, guilty of disability fraud, identity theft, forgery, embezzlement, and wire fraud. 15 separate felony convictions carrying a total sentence of 28 years in federal prison. Mr. Walsh, Judge Harrison said during sentencing 2 weeks later, you systematically stole not just money, but an entire decade of this young woman's life. You convinced her she was dying while you lived in luxury funded by her parents' life insurance. This court sentences you to 25 years in federal prison, with restitution of $847,000. As the bailiff led Derek away, he looked back at me one final time. I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no sadness, no lingering affection for the man who'd raised me. Just freedom. Outside the courthouse, Jennifer hugged me tightly. It's over, Maya. It's finally over. I nodded, but I knew it wasn't really over. It was beginning. For the first time in 11 years, I could plan a future that extended past 30. I could make decisions without calculating their impact on a terminal illness I'd never had. I could live without counting down days to a death that was never coming. The restitution would take years to collect, but the Nevada house sale had already yielded $190,000, and the storage unit contents were being auctioned next month. More importantly, I reclaimed something Derek could never have stolen if I'd known to protect it. My own life. 2 weeks later, I enrolled at Arizona State University as a full-time student, majoring in forensic accounting with a minor in criminal justice. If Derek had taught me anything, it was how to spot financial fraud. And I planned to spend the rest of my very long, very healthy life making sure no one else got away with what he'd done to me.